Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast, a place where we explore the world of horror and mystery in film, television, books, and in popular culture. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Bruce Markison, and once again, I'm joined by co-host and producer Tracy Asteria. So, Tracy, what is the latest in Nova Scotia?
It's cold. It's very, very cold. I think we've hit the ice age. It's so
Yeah.
cold. Oh my goodness. But you know what? Everything is going great. We're closing out November, and I don't know where November has gone. Um, just next week or whatever, it's going to be December, which is like Christmas.
Yeah.
So not
It
too
is
far
fast
away.
coming.
It
Yeah, it is
is.
absolutely coming at us. You mentioned how cold it is, icy, and that is, I guess, reminiscent of one of the two movies we're going to be talking about on tonight's show. The very first scene in the much ballyhooed, and I think deservedly so, Frankenstein from Guillermo del Toro. And the very first scene in that film, the ship up near the North Pole somewhere near there. That's kind of reminiscent of what you're talking about, cold and ice, and an incredible opening scene to that film.
Yes.
And that is one of the two movies that we're going to talk about this week on the Ghostly Gallery. Then later in the program, we'll talk about a film that is much more in the vintage category. That is a movie that came out 55 years ago, a made-for-TV movie that's become a real favorite of mine. And on this episode, we'll find out if it ranks as a favorite of yours or if it's something you're going to put in the Count Yorga category. And that is Crowhaven Farm. We're going to talk about that film with Hope Lang, which came out in 1970. So at the very least, two very interesting movies. Obviously, Del Toro's film is in the news right now, and it's one that we both have had a chance to watch on Netflix. So we're going to get in-depth on that. And then later on, we'll go into the archive and look back at something from the very early 1970s at a time when made-for-TV horror was becoming a really big thing. And that, of course, is Crowhaven Farm. But as promised, we are going to begin with the newest adaptation of Frankenstein. It's much anticipated, very highly praised. And Tracy, you're going to start us out by giving us a summary of this new hit film.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do my best not to give away any hidden details or kind of spoilers. But it's kind of hard, but I'm going to try. But this is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and it was released in theaters on October the 17th, and it just debuted on Netflix back on November the 7th. It stars Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, Christoph Waltz as Harlander, Mia Goth as Elizabeth, and Jacob Elordi, and I hope I said his name right, as the creature. And the runtime for this film, by the way, for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, is 2 hours and 29 minutes. So it's a little bit long. So you got to kind of settle in and bring your popcorn and hot chocolate because you're going to need it. But the story, it kicks off with a very cold and intense scene with a ship stuck in the ice up north. The crew is working frantically to free it so they can continue on with their mission. The daylight fades into night, and suddenly they hear an explosion. The men disembark to investigate, and they find a fire and a severely injured man. But then off in the distance, they hear a very loud, growling, beast-like noise, and it catches their attention. And as this creature approaches, the men get their first glimpse, and it looks kind of like a man, but it is so massive and terrifying. They open fire. This creature keeps advancing, and he's calling out for Victor. And eventually the men believe they succeeded in stopping it. And as the story goes on, the captain of the ship has a conversation with this injured man, who we come to find out is Victor Frankenstein. And they try to find out more from this man about what this creature is, what it was, and why he was after this man. And Victor is insistent to the captain return him to the ice and let the creature take him before everything is destroyed. So this kind of brings us to the first part of the narrative, which is told from the Victor Frankenstein's perspective. So we start out by seeing him as a child. He's curious, he's very, very intelligent, but that curiosity is fractured by tragedy. The film doesn't shy away from showing the depth of this little boy's grief when his mother actually dies. It leaves a very emotional wound and it never heals. But instead of kind of processing it, Victor becomes very fixated and he can't accept the death of his mother as being final. This loss plants the seed for a very lifelong obsession. He wants to understand death and eventually he wants to overcome it. So the story takes a little flash forward. Victor is now an adult, and we find him in the middle of like a trial with a bunch of people. And we learn that Victor, like, I don't know if he was a teacher. I couldn't quite figure that out, but he was presenting an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's doing is he's demonstrating that he can re-energize like a piece of a human corpse, even for just a moment. It's very unsettling. And it's like this glimpse into his scientific ambition. Later on, we're introduced to a gentleman named Heinrich Harlander. He's a very, very wealthy man, and he's very intrigued by Victor's experiments. We learn that Victor's brother, William, is marrying Harlander's niece, Elizabeth, who's played by Mia Goth. And Harlander is captivated by Victor's ideas of assembling a man from little bits and pieces and bringing it to life. So he then offers Victor unlimited funding for this project. And of course, Victor accepts it. And we're transported to the space that will eventually become his lab. It's very reminiscent of like the setting in James Whale's Frankenstein movie. So it's like this beautiful, beautiful lab that's kind of creepy. And it's amazing. But up until this point, we get a really good idea of the backstory. And there's great character development. The atmosphere and the feeling are really tense. And at this point, we're pretty much about 45 minutes to an hour into the story, but it doesn't really feel like it because it is so fast paced and it doesn't leave you bored. So I'm going to kind of stop right there. And I'm curious about the opening scene for you. Did that grab you right away?
Oh, it more than grabbed me. I mean, it took a hold of me. I felt like I was being thrown around by the monster at that point. To me, that was, in some ways, the most striking scene in the film. Maybe not the best scene, but it really caught your attention. You know, they talk about movies that start slowly, and this does not. As you mentioned, it is fast-paced. And that first scene, it's overwhelming, and it's incredibly shot. This enormous ship, which is literally stuck in this ice. They cannot move it. And then all of a sudden you hear that beast-like roar, people starting to run, and we get our first glimpse of the creature or the monster, whatever you want to call him. He's played by this actor that I didn't know a lot about going in, Jacob Elordi.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked him up in actual real life. He's 6'5" tall. They make him seem like 7'2". He looks so much taller than other people. And I don't know exactly how they did that. Because there's one scene where, there's more than one scene where he's standing next to Victor Frankenstein, who is played by Oscar Isaac. And it looks like he's a good foot and a half taller than Isaac. And there's not that much separation of them in real life. I don't think Isaac is that short. So somehow they made it seem, through this actor, Jacob Elordi, they made it seem like this creature he's playing is just incredibly tall. He's kind of lean, although you can't tell that in the opening scene because he's wearing a heavy coat. He's got all these garments on him because it's cold. But later on, when he is first, quote unquote, born, you do see him, and he's tall and he's lean, muscular, but he's not heavy set in any way. So The striking image, seeing this creature for the first time, how big and tall he is, just the incredible photography being used. And from what I understand, this was a film that Guillermo del Toro primarily relied on practical effects rather than special effects.
Yeah.
So this apparently was a ship that they somehow constructed, and it appears to be in the ice, stuck, can't move. It's really powerful. It does. There's no question that it grabs you. Now, the one thing that for me was a little deceiving, I thought with that kind of an opening scene, I thought this was going to be an incredibly violent movie with lots of destruction and carnage involving the creature.
Mm-hmm.
There is some of that, but it's really not like you would think based on the first scene. It does kind of settle into a little bit more, I don't want to say tranquil story, but it's a little calmer than that. It's not like, this is gore and blood and violence all throughout. It's not like that at all. It's not that kind of a film. But certainly when you watch that first scene, you might be misled into thinking that. So that's really the first thing that jumped out at me watching that scene in the ice. It's incredibly filmed. It really is.
No, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned looking at Jacob's information to see what his height is. I did the same thing. I was like, how tall is this actor? And I saw 6'5", and I was like, now that's pretty tall, but he looks more massive on the screen. And honestly, Bruce, if I was to have watched this at the actual movie theater, it probably would have presented way bigger than on just the smaller screen here.
He looks like a center in the NBA. He's got that kind of a build.
Yes.
Just incredibly tall, long arms, long limbs. I don't know that Frankenstein, we've ever really seen him portrayed that way. Robert De Niro played him in the mid-1990s in the Kenneth Branagh directed version of Frankenstein. And he was physically very strong, but he wasn't that tall. He wasn't that imposing in terms of height. Boris Karloff was not that tall. I think Boris Karloff was maybe 5'11".
Oh, wow.
Although they do with those heavy shoes, those really thick soled shoes, they do make him seem a little bit taller on film, but certainly nothing like Jacob Elordi in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is like a totally different physical interpretation of what the monster looks like. And I think it works.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So we're going to continue with Victor. He's still telling his story to the ship's captain, and we see his trials and tribulations. He finally succeeds in creating this creature using the parts of the deceased. A lightning storm approaches, setting the stage for bringing this creature to life. And once the creature is alive, Victor struggles with it. He doubts that it's an intelligent creature, and Victor shows kind of like this weird descent into madness. He's kind of got his highs and his lows, and he's all over the place. And then William and Elizabeth, they arrive at the lab, and Elizabeth sees this creature, and instead of being afraid, she is very intrigued and she's very empathetic. And soon Victor tries to destroy the lab, the research, the creature, because he's believed that he's made a very terrible mistake. So at this point, the story kind of shifts a little bit, and so does the narrative. So we're back on the ship again. The creature boards the ship one more time, the one that's stuck in the ice, and we start to hear the story from his perspective, because the captain says that we're just listening to this man's story about what happened. And the creature decides that he now wants to tell his side of the story, which I was like, wow, okay, this is going to be really good. So at this point, a significant part of the story is kind of focused on the creature and his relationship with this blind elderly man played by David Bradley. And the man teaches the creature how to read. He shares his food. He understands some of the better aspects of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
The bond is very tender. It's moving. And you kind of see that the creature is developing deep human emotions, I guess. And through these lessons, the questions start to come to the monster about where did he come from? He wants to know who he is, and what happened to him, because he doesn't really have any memories of what had happened. So he goes off to explore. There's multiple tragic events that occur that push this creature to confront Victor. And I guess the theme is the creature doesn't want to be alone. He wants a companion just like himself, and he wants Victor to create this companion for him. So this kind of brings the story full circle to the events on the ice, where we saw in the very beginning that the story is unfolding with Victor, the creature, the ship, and the captain. And there's a lot of fantastic performances in this movie. Jacob Elordi, so he's plays a creature, and he delivers a truly remarkable performance. It is amazing. He balances the physicality, the emotion, the intelligence in a way that just makes the character very sympathetic. Every movement, every gesture, just like even the smallest facial expression, it conveys curiosity, vulnerability, and just a very emotional complexity of someone experiencing, I guess, the world for the very first time. He manages to make the creature terrifying, but he has the sense of humanity, the good parts of humanity. And you feel his loneliness, his frustration at being misunderstood. And I believe that this performance stands out as one of the most compelling aspects of this movie. And the other performance that I'll just briefly mention is Oscar Isaac. He's fantastic as Victor Frankenstein. He captures that mix of brilliance with obsession, but he's also vulnerable as well. You can see how the loss in his childhood shaped him with the grief, but curiosity. He's very intense. He feels fear and guilt, especially in the scenes with the monster. And Isaac makes Victor's obsession feel real without overdoing it. And like, I just have to say too that I wasn't really familiar with these actors. I've heard of them, but I don't believe I've ever really seen anything from any of them. So I was truly impressed, Bruce.
Yeah, I was not familiar with Isaac or Elordi in terms of actual performances. Christoph Waltz, I've seen before. He was in Django Unchained, and he did a really good job in that film, and I thought he was outstanding in this film as well. So let's start with Isaac. I was about to call him Jason Isaac. That's a different actor. This is Oscar Isaac. Jason Isaac's a very good actor, by the way, but different actor here. So the way that Oscar Isaac portrays this character, Victor, is not at all likable. And you can see why. You know, he's raised by his father, who's a brilliant doctor. He's considered, like the best doctor in the land. But he's unable to save his wife, Victor's mother. Victor suspects that he didn't really give a great effort in trying to save her. Whether that's true or not, I'm not really sure. But the father abuses Victor. There's one scene where he strikes him, virtually for no reason. He's just a nasty guy. As brilliant as he is, he's really kind of a disgusting person. And unfortunately, that is going to be conveyed and really forecast onto Victor's personality. And he's a guy that he's looking to use people. Although this is a very noble cause, and he's trying to cheat death. He's trying to come up with a way that people can become immortal. He's trying to create a creature from spare parts, dead parts, resuscitate the creature, make him immortal. And he actually succeeds in doing that because this creature cannot be killed. There are a couple of times when you think he's died and then he revives himself. He comes back to life. So from that standpoint, Victor has done a good job. But to get there, to get the body parts, when they're looking, when they're looking at some of the war victims, he has no sympathy for the fact that these young men have been killed. Their bodies are torn apart. They're spread across the battlefield. There's no compassion. He's just looking, I need the best body parts for my new man, my new human that I'm going to be making. So you can tell that he's just not a guy with the right character. He doesn't have the right moral code at all.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also see his interaction with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is engaged to Victor's brother, and that doesn't stop Victor from trying to steal her away. I mean, they're right there. You get a pretty good sign. Yeah, this guy is not exactly the moral compass for this film. So there are a lot of problems with him. And I think Isaac does a really good job conveying that in his portrayal. Toward the end, we have some sympathy for him because he is regretful for what he's done. He pretty much apologizes to the creature. Whether he's completely sincere, I'm not sure, but he's a little more sympathetic toward the end of the film than he is throughout the middle of the movie. So Isaac did a really good job portraying Victor as the true monster, the true villain. Now, it certainly comes across. Elordi is interesting, and he does a really good job in this movie. He gains a lot of sympathy. Some people have reacted like he's the good guy in the movie. Well, compared to Victor, he is. But let's also not forget that he's throwing people around, those shipmen. He's throwing them around like Raggedy Ann dolls and killing them. And he's also killing other people at various parts of the movie. But I guess, by comparison to Victor, he does seem pretty good. I'll tell you one thing that puzzled me a little bit, Tracy. I was looking online and I was seeing reactions from what I assume are female fans, and they were talking, oh, how attractive the creature is. And, very sexy and alluring. And I'm like, wait a minute. He's better looking than Boris Karloff. Yeah, he's better looking than Robert De Niro was in the Brana film. But come on, he's not exactly a model. All these huge, these lines running across his face and his body. And then, at first he's bald. Then when he does grow hair, it's just a mangled mess. I mean, come on, this is not a GQ candidate. Let's not go overboard here.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even realize, I didn't look at any of the reviews or anything, but that is so interesting. As I was watching it, I never got that impression. It was just kind of like, man, Del Toro did excellent when he constructed this creature, stitched together with, it was great. Prosthetics, whatever they did to kind of like mold him.
Yeah.
It was just such a fascinating take on what the monster looked like till Del Toro.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's very effective.
Yes.
And it's unique, and I think it's something that people are going to remember. Of course, we have to keep in mind that Universal Studios still holds the copyright for the original appearance of Frankenstein in the films from the 1930s and 40s.
Oh, really?
And that copyright is going to expire, I think it expires in 2026. I think it's a 95-year copyright. So anybody other than Universal Studios making a Frankenstein movie, they cannot recreate that look that Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney, and later Bela Lugosi had as the Frankenstein monster. So Del Toro had to come up with something different, and he did, and I think it's very effective. I just don't think I would call him handsome. No. He ain't exactly Robert Redford in his prime. So, I mean, really, let's just keep that in balance. Another guy I want to talk about is Christoph Waltz. And here's an actor who I think not that long ago learned how to speak English. I think it was not that far in front of making Django Unchained
Mhm.
that he really first had any command of the English language. I think he's excellent, just like he was in Django. You know, he plays this character of Harlander who's got all this money, unlimited supply of funds. He's going to be the benefactor to Victor, pay for his lab, his experiments, but he's also hiding a little bit of a secret. I don't know if we should give that away, but we'll just say that he's not exactly 100% healthy,
Mhm.
and his lack of good health is a factor in him creating this monetary alliance with Victor. There's a reason he wants Victor to perform this experiment because Harlander himself can benefit from it. But I think Waltz is great. He's one of those guys when he's on screen, when he's speaking, he has kind of an unusual manner of speaking English, but it's very understandable, but it's very distinct, very interesting. And I thought he was great in this movie. So I thought as one of, the 3 or 4 main characters, he did a really good job. Now, this probably won't be a popular opinion, Tracy, but I did not think Mia Goth was that great. And I read a lot of online reviews from critics, from fans, saying that she was the best performer in the film and that her performance was just incredible. And I just didn't see it. I mean, she plays 2 roles. She plays Victor's mother early in the movie, and then later on, she plays the bigger role of Elizabeth. And she's the one who sees the humanity. She has compassion for the creature, unlike Victor, who's, just looking at the monster as part of his great experiment. I thought she was okay. I thought she was fine. I didn't think she was overwhelmingly good. I've seen her in some other films, and again, I think she's very acceptable and does a good job. But, to me, she's not in the top tier of horror actresses like some make her out to be. I don't put her in the same category as Mary Elizabeth Winstead or Vera Farmiga, some of the others we talked about on earlier shows. I think she's fine, but I think it's a bit overrated, and I don't think she really stands out in this movie. Maybe you may disagree. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to be 100% honest. I have never seen her act in a role before. I haven't seen any of the horror movies that she's been in or any of her other projects. So this was kind of like my first time.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was like okay. Um, she was like a decent supporting role. I had no idea that she actually played Victor's mother in the earlier scenes until after I started like looking at the cast on
Yeah.
IMDb. I had no idea because
Yeah.
I couldn't place her.
Yeah.
But she was interesting. I I don't know. I don't think I think she's probably capable of doing a lot better. Um, but she had a lot of screen time. She really did. I felt she had a lot of screen time, and I thought she was pretty much okay. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that she was like super phenomenal that she took the lead in this film.
Right.
I think that belongs to Aldori. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting with some of the other roles I've seen Mia Goth in. She did that trilogy of films that came out a couple of years ago. One of the films was called X, I believe, and I've seen those movies, and they're okay. Um, she though she speaks English with an American accent in those movies. And then here she is with a British accent, and she's actually British.
Oh,
So, but
was she really?
this was the first time I've actually seen her speak with her native accent. So that was a little bit jarring for me because all these earlier roles, she's played American characters with American accents. And her, look, her accent as an American is fine. Obviously, her British accent is fine because that's what she grew up with. I also thought they didn't really do justice to her. very attractive, but they gave her some really weird hairdos in this movie. And I'm
Yes.
guessing that, that was emblematic of the time. But, really kind of strange hairdos that made her look almost childlike in some ways.
Mhm.
Um, that's not her fault, if that's a fault at all. That was the way that they decided to costume her and prepare her makeup. But it did make her look a little bit strange.
Mhm.
Um, I thought she's okay, and she did a very acceptable job. I just don't think she was the dominant performer here.
Yeah.
It'd be hard for her to be the dominant performer because obviously the two main characters are played by Elordi and Isaac, and
Yes.
they're in most of the scenes. So, and their performances are excellent. So they're meant to be the central focus, and I think they very much are. Now, one other actor I want to talk about, Tracy, is the blind man, played by David Bradley. And I'm surprised you didn't mention he is the actor from The Strain.
Yes.
Yes. And he is excellent in this role as the blind man. It's a small part. He
Mhm.
doesn't really show up until middle of the movie. But he's this very friendly old man. He's the grandfather. He has his young granddaughter read him stories. He sort of is a mentor to her, teaches her. He's very kind. But then when he actually sits down with the creature, when he realizes the creature is in the house with him, he can't see, he's blind, but he hears him. He senses that it's a presence. And he ends up calling him, what does he call him? The something of the forest,
Oh,
the
yes.
spirit of the forest.
Yes.
Because the creature is actually trying to do good deeds for the blind man's family. He's building huts. He is kind of doing chores quietly around their house, even though he's never dared to introduce himself because he knows they'll reject him if they see him physically.
Mhm.
So he's sort of the unseen benefactor, and he is the spirit of the forest, as the blind man calls him. And then after the rest of the family, they're going out on a wolf hunt because wolves have been attacking their farm. So the old man is left behind, and that's when the creature comes out, and he encourages the creature to come out, tells him to sit down, share some food, have some brandy, sit and talk to him. And the blind man comes out and says, I killed a man when I was very young, and it's something I have great regret for. It's something I can never really forgive myself for. And the way he's leading his life, he's trying to atone for that. And he's being very kind, very generous. And even though he cannot see this creature, and he knows that he's scarred because he touches his face, he touches his arms, he knows that physically he's probably not very attractive, but he accepts him right away as his friend. So you can tell that this guy has really tried to reform his life after committing this murder. We don't know the circumstances of the murder. We don't know exactly what happened. We just know that he did take a man's life, and it's something that he has terrible feelings about. I thought he was great, David Bradley, in that role. I thought he was absolutely outstanding.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. And it was so good to see him on screen, Bruce.
Yeah.
He reminded me of Satrakian from The Strain when he was there. Just that same aura, I guess.
Yeah.
And I mean, and honestly, The Strain is a Del Toro project as well. So just to
Right.
kind of have them team up again. And when you were talking about Christoph Waltz, he actually kind of reminded me of Richard Sammel in a way.
Mhm.
Just kind of like the same mannerisms and the same kind of character type, I guess. So those parts felt really good to me as well.
Yeah. Well, this, visually, it's a stunning film, great camera work, tremendous special effects. I mean, or practical effects, how they did half the stuff they did, I don't know. We talked about that first scene earlier, which really creates an impression with you. And then the scene that you mentioned that takes place later on, that medical hearing, the trial, if you will, with that almost miniature creature that he has created that somehow is alive It has been revived. Uh, doesn't live for very long, just for a few minutes before it expires. But it shows you, obviously the talent that Victor Frankenstein has, these brilliant scientists that's been passed on to him by his father. But those scenes, the medical hearing, the opening scene of the ship are just incredible. Really, really well done. And even though we both watched it on a small screen, that still comes across. And if we ever do get a chance to watch it on a large screen, I mean, that really must be amazing.
Oh gosh, absolutely. I mean, I've heard of people going to like the IMAX theater and just the movie theaters and watch this over and over and over again while it was playing. So it's visually, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
It really is. Um, I love this movie, and I did go in. I went in with a very open mind. And as I mentioned, I wasn't familiar with most of the actors, but I really was captivated. And I'm going to give it 4 stars. It's emotional, it's thought provoking, and it just sticks with you. Um, I don't really feel that it's a horror film in the traditional sense. Um, it's really a movie about loss, obsession, grief, search for a connection. But the performances and the whole story, it just pulls you in and it doesn't let go. I just think it was really, really well done. And this was a film that Del Toro has wanted to make for years. So he's had his chance, and I think he succeeded over the moon.
Yeah. Well, Tracy, I think you've hit it on the head. It's not a horror film through and through. It certainly has some elements of horror, no question, but it is also fantasy. It is also drama. Now, if we judge it strictly as a movie and forget about whether it fits neatly into the genre of horror, into that package, just think about it as a movie in and of itself. It is masterfully done.
Mm-hmm.
For my own personal taste, I would have liked to see more horror, like we saw in the opening scene, the ship. It's not that kind of movie, though. As you say, Del Toro, very talented guy. He does have a tendency to be a little melodramatic, almost flowery in his filmmaking style. I think we see that here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that probably appeals more to the mass audience as opposed to horror diehards. It doesn't mean it's not a good movie. It's an outstanding movie in many, many ways. It's just not what we've come to expect in terms of classic old-fashioned horror.
Mm-hmm.
But when you evaluate the movie, you have to do it on its own merits. You can't just push the idea of genre. And I think, like you, it deserves a very high rating. I would also give it 4 stars. Beautifully presented, exceptionally well acted. And I think with just enough faithfulness to the original story from Mary Shelley, but also enough material that is different that it makes it Del Toro's own story. And that's one of the keys. Whenever you're adapting a piece of literature like this, I don't think you just want to replicate what the story is, the written story. You want to give it a little bit of your own spin. And I think Del Toro has succeeded in doing this. I am curious to see if Del Toro is going to do a follow-up to this film to show us the monster in the days and the years after the death of Victor Frankenstein. I don't know if Del Toro has made any comment on that. I think it would be interesting if he decides to, tackle a Bride of Frankenstein or Son of Frankenstein, or, something along those lines. Obviously, this guy, he has the talent, the creative nature to do something like this and to do it really well. He may, of course, have other projects that he wants to work on. This may be a one and done. But if it is one and done, he did it really, really well.
Oh my gosh, Bruce. But you know what would be on my wish list? So if he wasn't game for doing like a new movie, I would love to see him take on the challenge of like, say, a 10-part Netflix miniseries, like he did for Cabinet of Curiosities. He did a 10-part Netflix miniseries. Just think of what he could accomplish with the stories in kind of that same manner. I think I would be super thrilled, and I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. He's certainly capable of doing it. The question is, does he have the time? Does he want to commit to that? I'm sure he has other projects in mind as well. But obviously, an outstanding film, currently available on Netflix. It'll probably be there for a long time, and that is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. So Tracy and I both give it 4 stars. We're going to take a short break. When we come back on the Ghostly Gallery, we're going to make another one of our ventures into the world of made-for-TV horror from the 1970s. It's a film that came out at the early part of the decade, 1970 itself, and that is Crowhaven Farm. Back to talk about that in a moment. Stay with us on the Ghostly Gallery. Welcome back to the Ghostly Gallery podcast. Bruce Marcuson along with Tracy Asteria. We're in the midst of a double feature of films. We started with Guillermo del Toro's latest, Frankenstein, and now we move on to a film that not many other people are talking about right now, but it does celebrate an anniversary. It came out 55 years ago, way back in November of 1970, and that is Crowhaven Farm. This is a movie that involves the subgenre of witchcraft and devil-worshipping films. So Crowhaven Farm stars a highly respected actress, Hope Lang. At the time of filming Crowhaven Farm, she had just completed a 2-year run as the lead character on the television show The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. It was a show that was only on for 2 seasons, 50 episodes, but it was featured in syndication for a while. Haven't seen it in many years. It was a show, really, though, that was much more comedy than it was pure horror, even though there was a ghost in it. Well, Crowhaven Farm is something very, very different from The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. So in this film, Lang plays Maggie Porter. She is one half a very nice married couple living in the city, but also enduring some struggles with their relationship. The Porters inherit a house and a lot of property, but only after the intended recipient, who is a cousin of theirs, is killed while actually driving to the location of the house and the farm. So that cousin crashes his car when a young blonde girl steps out on the road, forcing him to swerve. He veers off the road right into a tree. The car explodes in fire, and he is killed. So simply by happenstance, it seems, the Porters inherit this country farmhouse known as Crowhaven Farm, and it prompts them to move to Essex County, a very rural part of Massachusetts. Maggie and her husband Ben, who is played by character actor Paul Burke, hope the move to the country will help ease some of the tensions of their marriage. Some of those tensions involve the fact that he's a struggling artist, not making a lot of money. Also, some of the stress involves the fact that they want to have a child but have not been successful in doing so. So they're hoping the move to Crowhaven Farm is going to spur some things on in their marriage. But as it turns out, all it's really going to do is place Maggie in a very dangerous situation. So the Porters soon arrive at their new home, and almost immediately, Maggie finds herself feeling uneasy. She gets the feeling that she has been to Crowhaven Farm before, as if she lived a previous life there. So right away, immediately she wants to leave the house. But then when she starts talking to Ben, she realizes Ben loves the location. He loves the fact that they're, spread out. They have, it's a physically a beautiful place. Open fields. There's room in the barn where he can create a studio to make his art. Very relaxing. So she realizes he's not going to want to move. I'm not even going to bring up my feelings. So she keeps them quiet. Well, she drops the idea, but then she meets the strange and aging handyman, Nate Cheever, who somewhat surprisingly Ben has hired without telling her. Ben's hired this man to repair the foundation of the house. Very old house, dates back to the 17th century. Horror icon John Carradine takes on that role of the handyman with relish. And while his screen time is relatively brief, he is very effective as this mysterious man with perhaps questionable intentions. And it's clear that he's hiding something, but exactly what that secret is, we're not exactly sure, at least not yet. Well, then Maggie becomes even more concerned because of other strange developments around her. They include her hearing a girl whose cries can be heard at night. There is demonic sounds in the nearby woods. And also Maggie has these visions, both in her dreams, but also while she is awake. And these visions are images of 17th century Puritan life. So it's like a different time period, and she sees herself in this time period. Now, her husband remains skeptical that there's anything wrong with Crowhaven Farm. So she ends up becoming friendly with one of her weekend neighbors, a man named Kevin Pierce, and he's played by longtime character actor Lloyd Bachner. Pierce arranges a job for Maggie with a legal firm, so that's going to address some of their financial problems. But he also shows some romantic interest in her, and that creates jealousy on the part of Ben. Now, to her credit, Maggie resists Pierce's advances. I mean, she's faithful to Ben, but there does remain some lingering tension between Ben and Maggie, especially on New Year's night, when Ben plants a kiss on Maggie at midnight. That was not a great move on Ben's part.
No.
Then we have the arrival of two very questionable characters. One of them is named Mercy Lewis, a scheming woman named after a key character from Arthur Miller's famous work, The Crucible. Mercy is played by veteran actress Virginia Gregg. Now, Lewis, in Meeting with the Porters, claims that she is dying. She has a terminal illness. She's bringing her 10-year-old niece, Jennifer, to meet the Porters, offering to have them adopt the young girl because she had met with Maggie earlier and, knew about the Porters wanting to have a child. And if they couldn't have their own child, they certainly wanted to adopt. Well, when we first see Jennifer in this scene, we see that she is the same young girl from the beginning of the movie. She's the young blonde girl who stepped in front of the cousin's car and caused him to have the fatal accident. So right away, the alarms are going off with Jennifer on the scene. Now, the Porters, they're anxious to have a child, and they're too gullible for their own good. And they're kind of taken in by Jennifer. She makes a good first impression. So they agree to temporarily take in the niece while Mercy Lewis travels to a nearby hospital for some additional medical tests. But then the Porters learn that Mercy has killed herself, supposedly. And that puts a little bit of pressure on them to go ahead and finalize the adoption because they don't want young Jennifer not to have, any kind of a family life. Mm-hmm. So with the help of a local physician named Dr. Terminer, boy, I love that name, a doctor with the name Terminer. The only thing that would be worse if he was called Dr. Terminal.
Oh my
Terminer.
Goodness.
Yeah. They should have known that Dr. Terminer was not the guy to be meeting with. But anyway,
agree.
Dr. Terminer helps arrange and expedite the adoption. It seems like they bypass a lot of the paperwork that needs to be done. And it's a lightning fast adoption that takes place. So this young girl, Jennifer, played by a young Cindy Eilbacher. She was one of the two sisters, the Eilbacher sisters, who were pretty big back in the late 70s, early 80s. Her sister was in the Eddie Murphy movie, Beverly Hills Cop. She is a friend to the main character played by Eddie Murphy. But anyway, this is her sister, Cindy, who plays young Jennifer. And Jennifer is attractive, but at the same time, a little bit sinister. We start to see that build with some of the following scenes. So her arrival is really going to complicate matters for the Porters. So as the paranoia builds scene by scene, in a way that is very similar to the experiences that Mia Farrow had in Rosemary's Baby, Maggie, with similar feelings, is really forced to deal with a terrifying reality, which is revealed in the final act of the film. And just when you think that the director of the movie, Walter Grauman, and the writer, John McGravy, are done with us, they then involve, or unveil, I should say, another plot twist, one that involves Ben. And then after that, another twist at the very end, leaving us with a major chill as the credits begin to roll. So that last act, that last half hour, a lot of stuff happens, a lot of it surprising to me, especially when I watched it as a child back in the 70s. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But that's the synopsis of the film Crowhaven Farm. So, Tracy, let's get your thoughts. This is a film I think you have just watched for the first time. What are your initial impressions?
Well, you have mentioned this movie many times since I've known you, and it was nice to finally sit down and watch it. And I thought it was pretty decent. I thought the storyline was really engaging, kept me hooked. It wasn't like super complicated, but it had enough twists and turns, especially that last half hour. I didn't see any of that coming at all.
Mm-hmm.
I love the reincarnation feel, that whole angle. I love movies like that. You mentioned like a Rosemary's Baby kind of feel. Then it also kind of reminded me of the old movie Audrey Rose. I thought it was pretty great. I love the witchcraft feel, supernatural. It all works. I thought it was really well paced too. Nothing was dragging, and it didn't feel like it was trying to just give everything to you at the same time. It was like really well spaced out. There was, different pieces to it. There was some comedy, like very comedic moments with some of the neighbors in the area that were at the party.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like really retro. It was interesting to see it and to know that it was a made for TV movie too. I still find it hard to, I guess, imagine that there were films like that on modern TV at the time. It seems like it doesn't fit, but it's so cool to know that these movies were on TV at that time. And as for the horror side, I just loved the balance. And there was like the family tension, but supernatural. It was really cool. No jump scares at all, no gore. It was really atmospheric, and I loved it for a 70s horror film.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the comedy. Were there any lines in the film that really jumped out at you as maybe being unintentionally funny?
Oh gosh, I don't know any lines in particular, but the old fellow was he kind of cracked me up a little bit. And I thought that the gentleman that had the interest in Meg, I thought he was a little bit over the top at times.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, oh, really? Because, I could see, her husband wanting to kind of like give him a little smuck to say, go away. But he was just, I found he was humorous because he was a little over the top. And that kiss at midnight on New Year's Eve, it was, I thought it was quite funny. Actually.
Yeah. Yeah. That was more than a bold move. That actor, Lloyd Bachner, he was the father of another actor, Hart Bachner. Hart Bachner played the character of Ellis in the first Die Hard movie.
Really?
And he's the guy who's trying to negotiate with Hans, the lead terrorist. Remember, he's the guy with the beard. He's the cocaine sniffing, businessman.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's really smart, and he ends up basically, it's almost like a suicide. He says all the wrong things to Hans, and Hans ends up killing him. Not very bright. So anyway, Hart Bachner, who played that character of Ellis, is the son of this actor, Lloyd Bachner.
Oh,
and Lloyd Bachner did a lot of these types of films. He was in a lot of horror movies, a lot of dramatic films. A little bit of a stiff actor, and there were times when he's a little over the top, and I guess he is in that movie. But I think in general, the cast here is pretty good. Hope Lang was really an outstanding actress. And she's excellent here. She plays a very likable, level-headed character. She is smart enough to realize that something is going on at Crowhaven Farm. whereas maybe other people don't fully realize it. She does listen to that older gentleman you mentioned, played by another longtime actor, Cyril Delavante. He brings her books about the history of Crowhaven Farm and of that township and how it's tied into witchcraft and it's connected to Salem as well. So she's smart enough to realize that, yeah, not everything is right here, but she's also very vulnerable given the supernatural trappings. And she doesn't necessarily have a lot of allies in this situation. So she's terrific. And the cast is really good. We mentioned Bachner, John Carradine, who talked about him, Virginia Gregg, Cyril Delavante, and then Milton Selzer is great as Dr. Terminer. I think he's especially good. Now, he's a guy who was famous for the Twilight Zone episode, The Masks. He is one of the relatives of the older man living in New Orleans, and he's one of the people who put the mask on. And then at the end of the episode, it reveals that they're all deformed as a result of the mask that they've worn. He's seemingly friendly as Dr. Terminer, kind of a charming guy, tries to provide answers to Maggie, tells her that she is pregnant, finally. She does have a baby, and that certainly plays into the final act of the movie. But while he's outwardly charming and friendly, he's clearly hiding something. You sense that he knows what really is going on here. And then I talked about Virginia Gregg. She also appeared in The Twilight Zone. She was in several episodes of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. She is seen only briefly as the aunt to young Jennifer. So she's only seen briefly in the present day, but then we see her later in the movie in some of the dream sequences / hallucinations. And there we see her true nature, where she's this really vicious, angry character. And we don't necessarily shouldn't believe that she actually committed suicide. So I don't want to give away too much, but don't believe the stories of her being dead. That's just a convenient excuse to leave Jennifer with the Porters. But I thought she was great too. So a lot of really good character actors from that era, from the 60s and the 70s. And I thought it was a nice supporting cast to complement what Hope Lang did. I want to get your thoughts on the cast. You talked about Bachner being over the top. What about some of these other people?
I've got to say the lead actress was really good. She made the family drama feel real. The spooky moments, I thought she handled those really well. And the girl Jennifer, she played like she was super innocent and curious, but her energy made me really suspicious. I'm like, no, I don't think so. But
especially when she crawls into bed with the father. Yeah, that didn't look too good.
No, my spidey senses kind of went up, and I'm like, I just don't think so. I thought it was weird, and she kind of like, I don't know. She must have gone through like this weird secret passage or something to get to his room. I don't know. It was like really weird when I watched it. I was like, huh. But
she had been in that house before, maybe in a prior life.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, I thought, and I'm going to be honest here, I thought the lead actress, as I watched this entire movie, I thought it was the lady from the Partridge Family. I did. I was like, and it wasn't until the credits rolled, and I'm like, okay, well, now I just have to do a little look up. And it was.
I am so glad you brought that up. Because for years, I used to get Hope Lang confused with Shirley Jones.
Oh, really?
Who was the mother on that show. They had very similar looks, very similar hairstyles, about the same age. Now, Hope Lang did pass away a few years ago, but Shirley Jones is still alive, still in her 90s at the time we were recording this. I used to get them confused all the time, and I thought maybe I was the only one. But now you've confirmed that, yeah, there are, I think, a lot of people out there that probably confuse Hope Lang and Shirley Jones. But yeah, they are two different people.
Oh, thank goodness, because I really thought it was just a me thing, right?
Yeah.
It was like, I'm gonna just say it. I thought it was Shirley Jones the whole entire time. And the girl Jennifer, like, she reminded me of one of the girls from the Brady Bunch too, just kind of like it was so weird. And I think maybe it was like the whole 70s vibe, maybe, but um as odd as that character was, I thought the performance was really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good cast overall.
Yeah, she had the Jan Brady look. She really did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It must have been the in thing back in those days.
Right. I mentioned the actress's real name, Cindy Albacher, and her sister's name, Lisa Albacher. And Lisa probably has had the more prominent of the careers. Again, Lisa was in Beverly Hills Cop and did a lot of other stuff beside that. But at one time, the Albachers were a pretty big deal.
Wow.
All right, let's give some credit to the director here, a guy named Walter Grauman. He would later direct 53 episodes of Murder, She Wrote. He was one of the regular directors on that show. And he also directed two other made-for-TV horrors, one of them called The Covenant, and the other, The Nightmare on the 13th Floor. And he was a very good, well-prepared, well-researched director, good to work with as well. He really creates powerful imagery here through the use of fire and smoke and stoning. But as you said, all done in a very bloodless way, very simple way. And really back in 1970, with these made-for-TV films, because they had such limited budgets, it had to be done that way. And I think in some ways, it's more effective because of the simplicity of the imagery. You know, you don't necessarily have to have high-tech special effects or even high-tech practical effects in order for it to work. Sometimes, you know, just using things like smoke and fire is very effective. And I think it is here. I think this is a lesson that modern day filmmakers, especially those working with small budgets, could really learn from. And Grauman does a great job of that. Also, the music that they played throughout the film. You know, they had like that 3 or 4 note chord that every time I heard it, it just went right through my spine. It's really, and it was a sense something bad is about to happen or is happening. And I thought that was great. Very, very chilling for the time period. So let's get your final assessment, Tracy. What do you think of Crowhaven Farm? What kind of a ranking will you give it?
I really enjoyed it. The atmosphere, the way it combined all of the supernatural, witchcraft, reincarnation. I thought it was kind of charming in a weird way. Definitely some memorable moments, an engaging storyline, good performances, and it kind of felt nostalgic in a weird way, maybe just because it was from the 70s. It's interesting to see, again, like I mentioned, just to kind of see that from a TV lens perspective, I thought was pretty cool. Overall, I gave it 3 stars, and I know the difference. It's not Shirley Jones, so, you know, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And it does not rank as a Count Yorga movie to me, so I'll set that record.
Okay, so you give it a good rating. You're not as high on it as I am, but you think it's still pretty good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. So I have some vague memories of first seeing Crowhaven Farm way back in the mid-70s as part of the old 4:30 movie, which used to air weekdays in the New York City market on ABC television. And I remember Crowhaven Farm did make multiple appearances on that 4:30 movie. And I have less than vague memories of that film scaring the absolute daylights out of me when I watched it for the first time. So even watching in seeming safety and comfort of the daytime hours, 4:30 in the afternoon, this is a movie that really terrified me. I was only 11 or 12 at the time.
Mhm.
And the film's creepiness really stuck with me. And I got to be honest, the movie made me a bit paranoid. I started wondering, much like Maggie Porter if I could trust the people around me. I guess that's how the mind of a 10 to 12-year-old works. So it really had an effect on me at a young age. More importantly, though, Crowhaven Farm helped develop my growing appreciation for horror films in general. And I think this contributed to me watching late night showcases like Chiller Theater that would appear late Saturday nights. So I'd watched this as a kid, and then I didn't see the movie for many, many years because it almost never airs on television. And then a few years back, I decided to watch it. It is on YouTube, and there's a pretty good print of it on YouTube that's available right now. So I watched it as an adult. I wanted to see if it held up. And the follow-up viewing confirmed for me that, yeah, this is a really, really good film. And it continued to score well for me, even as an adult, with its atmosphere, its ability to inflict paranoia and terror. Not as scared as I was the first time around. I sort of knew what was coming, but at the same time, it held up for me like 40 years later. Now, as made-for-TV movies go, it's really hard to find much better than this extremely creepy offering with so many unexpected developments over those final 20 to 30 minutes of the film. And there have been some excellent made-for-TV movies over the years. We've talked about some of them here. We've talked about movies like The Night Stalker, The Night Strangler, Salem's Lot from 1979. Mm-hmm. Just a few weeks ago, we talked with our friend Josh Hitchens about The Midnight Hour from 1985. These are some of the best in that made-for-TV category. In my mind, though, Crowhaven Farm is the standard bearer. It is the best of the group. In fact, in my opinion, it's so well done that I would rank it among my top 25 favorite films in the history of horror. So this is a film that I have a real fondness for. 4 stars for Crowhaven Farm.
Nice.
All right. So our 2 movies are in the books. Crowhaven Farm from 1970 and the new film on Netflix right now, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Tracy and I both gave Frankenstein 4 stars. I gave Crowhaven Farm 4. Tracy, a little stingier at 3, but still acceptable. Thanks, Tracy. Good conversation. A lot of fun with this one.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. It's always fun. It was great to finally see Crowhaven Farm. So, yeah, thank you.
And now I don't have to keep talking about it every other week. Or maybe I will.
Yes, definitely.
All right, Tracy. Thanks for your many contributions. Great job discussing these 2 very enjoyable films. We want to thank everybody for listening and watching and joining us in this museum of the macabre that we like to call ourselves. And we do hope we'll see you again next time right here in the Ghostly Gallery.